and it's a step forward and a step in the right direction, but he doesn't really like signal a home run swing for me.
We have a fourth head coaching change of the season. Pete, Derek Lalonde out in Detroit. Todd McClellan takes over to become head coach of just his fourth team, even though this guy is on his 900th team because every fan base has hired this guy in their minds before. What do you think of the change?
Yeah, it's crazy that this is only his fourth team, right? I feel like Todd McClellan's coached everybody at this point. I like it in the short term. Like Derek Lalonde for sure ran out of runway in Detroit. I feel like he should have been fired weeks ago at this point, and especially when you consider that he's in the last year of his contract. You knew he wasn't going to be the head coach of the Red Wings moving beyond this year, and how lifeless and I guess I don't want to say embarrassing, but kind of embarrassing and uninspiring that team has been for the last little while. Just get him out of there, please. Please, like even if you're going for an interim guy, get Lalonde out, see if you maybe catch a spark or fire with the next guy who comes in. As far as like bigger implications, bigger picture, McClellan's not that inspiring either, in my mind. Like he's a better option, I would assume. I think he's proven that he can do the job, but he hasn't proven that he can like really bring it on home and be the big solution for a team. And I don't feel that way with McClellan in Detroit, but it's at least like a fine, fun story. That like that was the first place that he got his NHL coaching job for an assistant in 2005. He coached Steve Yzerman. Like that whole narrative part of it is fun, and it's a step forward and a step in the right direction. But he doesn't really like signal a home run swing for me.
The Red Wings are 7th in the Atlantic by points percentage, and I believe by points. And if they were in the Metro, they would be dead last. They are firmly not in the playoff picture. They got a .441 winning percentage. They got to catch at least 5 or 6 teams if they want to become a wild card team. The biggest thing that needs to change with this team is the penalty kill. And I know it's a stupid thing to point to one special teams thing, but like one thing that is proven with this Red Wings team this season is they cannot kill penalties. So the first thing that needs to change is improve on special teams. And then from there, some of the teams ahead of them, like they should be better than the Canadians. They have a better roster than the Canadians. I don't think should be better than the Senators. The Senators and the Sabres, we say every year, are the teams every year that are in kind of the same position. I understand if the Senators are going to be better than them, that's fine, but they should be better than they should be better than the Flyers. This team has underachieved, even if they're not a great team. They don't have enough guys, but they can be better. What do you think they need to change?
Yeah, I mean, the penalty kill is a good point, and they did fire the boogeyman, who is in charge of the penalty kill, so he's out too. Yeah, I also think for me the biggest thing is they need to find a way to spice some life into that offense. Their offense absolutely stinks. Their 5-on-5 offense is only better than the Nashville Predators, who could not score a goal for the first like 3 months of the season. So, like, if that's the only team you're better than, then not great. They're scoring less than 2 goals an hour at 5-on-5, which is outrageous. Like you mentioned, their roster's not great. It's not, but it's better than that. And so I think the attention now turns, I think, to Steve Yzerman, because at what point does your patience run out with the Yzerplan? It's been what, 5 years now? They still haven't made the playoffs. They're not really going in the right direction. They're not exciting. They do have some guys in the pipeline, but like overall, Yzerplan, like everybody was like in Yzerman we trust. He's kind of like the Belichick thing where it's like no matter what he does, we trust in this guy. Just be patient with him. He'll bring us to the promised land. I think at this point, the patience and the confidence in that is starting to run out for sure.
My favorite stat, one that I've really fallen in love with this year, is guys. How many guys does a team have? And generally, your team can have a lot of guys and still not be very good. But if you can have 7 or 8 guys on your team, and a guy is not just an above average player, but a guy a player who can be a problem
You
at
circle them on
various
paper.
points. You say you
Yeah.
watch out for this guy. The Red Wings, as we know, anybody who follows this stat, have 5 guys, and I'm generous when I say they have 5 guys.
Who are your
They've got
5?
2 young studs who are entering the primes of their careers in Mo Seider and Lucas Raymond. They've got a great goal scorer in Alex DeBrincat. They've got Dylan Larkin, who's really good. And I still say Patrick Kane is a guy, but numbers wise, not really a guy this season. And from there, they've got roster players. And I know that's mean to certain players. Like, sorry, Vladimir Tarasenko, you once were a guy, but you are no longer a guy. I said the biggest problem with the team and they're playing is that if they go on special teams, if they take a penalty, they're toast. You said that they don't score goals, but you also brought up the architect. If your roster does not have much depth at all, and I think that we can agree on that, they just are not deep or even close to it. That's not a coach problem. I agree Lalonde should have been fired. That was a card that they had to play. But like any coach firing, I definitely wouldn't even put 50% of the blame pie on Derek Lalonde's plate. I think that this is way more a roster construction thing.
I think at this point I would put at least close to 50% based off of what they've looked like this season. Like they'd improved in each of Lalonde's first 2 seasons, and I think that that's a credit to him. I don't know if he maybe lost the room or just like there hasn't been sort of that drive in the room this year, but they just seem very, very lifeless and uninspiring. And I think that they're playing below their roster quality this season in particular. And the roster's not very good. Let's say that. I mean, you mentioned the guys, the lack of guys. I agree with that, but still, I still think they're playing below their ability.
Let's talk about Todd McClellan because he feels very retready always. On his second, when he went to the Oilers on his second head coaching job, I was like, it's just an old boys club in the NHL, isn't it? You just hired that's his second team? Damn, my bad. And then when he goes to the Kings, you're like, oh, what is he going to do there that he didn't do in the last 50 places? This is his third team? Oh my goodness. He could have, we think, gone to the Blue Jackets this offseason. And it shakes out that Evason becomes the guy. Who knows whose say that was? Do you think this ends up being a better spot for him, Detroit, than Columbus?
Uh, Maybe based off the guys they have in the system, but probably not. Like I like Columbus's roster a little bit better based off of what they have in terms of potential and young guys. But yeah, I mean, I think maybe bullet dodged if you're the Columbus Blue Jackets that you ended up with Dean Evason, who's done a pretty good job there. Yeah, I mean, like again, I'm not excited by Todd McClellan. I'm not. And you saw some of the things that his previous players had to say about him when he left LA, and they weren't big fans of that system and the 1-3-1 that he's running out. And so, like, guys may not love playing for him, but it doesn't look like they loved playing for Lalonde this season either. As again, I just keep coming back to that. It's a good short term move. I think it's a step forward short term. It doesn't get me excited in a bigger picture.
This is going to help them, though, in terms of goal differential. I don't know how much it's going to help them in terms of scoring goals. It's definitely going to help in goal suppression and I guess winning the battle of possession. But they're just they're 14th in the league in goals against per game. They are fine. You can make the playoffs easily being middle of the pack in goals against per game. It's when it's coupled with the 31st offense in the NHL that you are not going anywhere.
With the 11th ranked power play. Like their power play is pretty good, and it's like right outside the top 10, and you're still like almost bottom of the league in goals per game. That's how bad the offense has been. They need to start scoring goals.
There's a lot of tree stuff though with Todd McClellan because he's part of the Babcock tree, Detroit. He's part of I guess he just coached Yzerman in Detroit. Yep. So in some cases, there's like a St. Louis Blues welcome home kind of thing there. It's weird that the more jobs Todd McClellan gets, the more I'm reminded that his body count, so to speak, isn't as high as we always think it is. So it's not that retready, I think. How old do you think he is?
He's 57 because I looked it up before this.
Because you thought he was in his early 70s. He would have
I did
to.
not think that. He doesn't look that poorly. He doesn't look that bad.
You thought he was in his early 70s. You thought he was very old because he's coached so many teams. But as I said off the top, every fan base at some point has assumed Todd McClellan was actively or about to become the coach of their team. For the Red Wings, this, as you said, gives them hope for a spark this season.
I don't even know. I don't think he gives them hope for a spark this season.
I think it does. I think they'll be better. I don't think they're going to make
better.
the playoffs. Yeah.
I think if you mean like spark in terms of like they might be watchable. Like I think the Detroit fans have been out on this team, and just in terms of their watchability, just get that guy out of here, make this team watchable again. It's kind of like how I felt with Jim Montgomery with the Bruins to start this season. They were not even watchable. Joe Sacco has made them watchable. Do I think that he's the guy for them? I don't know. I don't know if McLellan's a guy. I think he's going to make them better. I think he can get them to the playoffs, maybe not this year, but next year or a year after. And maybe that's good enough for Red Wings fans at this point, given the second longest drought in the NHL. But yeah, I think that if that's a spark, then sure.
Okay, the Red Wings are 441 on the season, I'll remind you. They've lost 3 games in a row. I think they will be better than that the rest of the like they will be improved under him just because of a spark. That's it. I don't think that this is going to be some magical Hamburglar type thing or some Craig Berube type thing where someone comes in and all the fortunes are suddenly changed. I said earlier, the roster construction doesn't wow me. I did not like the Vladimir Tarasenko signing in the first place. I was very confused by that. And for the rest of the way, though, I hate to do like a bold prediction, if you will. I think they'll be near 500 the rest of the season. Maybe 500.
Stinks that that's good enough. Like that's considered good enough for this franchise. I this has to be the first domino though in like a long string of Yzerman. Like Yzerman's got to get this team fucking going, and they have to push and take that big step forward soon, or else he might be out of a job, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Friend of the show, Jeff Merrick, has noted with us that the Ilitch family is not, it's typically not their want to fire coaches in season. This is just the second time they have done it. If this gets worse, do you think the Red Wings, and they have been sellers before, but do you think that they would be coach firers and sellers in the same season?
Yeah. Like I think it's possible based off of where they're at. Like it's one of those situations where even if they are in playoff contention, given how bad the Eastern Conference is, what is your evaluation of your team when it comes time to getting there? I don't see Yzerman being a guy who's just like happy with getting there. He's a guy who always looks bigger picture, is more patient, is more methodical. If he sees an opportunity to make this team better in a longer run, knowing that they can't really contend this season, but they're in kind of a playoff bubble, I think he makes that deal.
2 guys I think that you watch there, they're both forwards. One, Patrick Kane. 1 year, $4 million deal. That's easy to move. You retain half on that, and any team in the NHL can add him if they want him and if he wants to go. The other one, another player that we've mentioned here, Vladimir Tarasenko. 2-year deal. The money is bad. The contract is bad. But if you can get away from that, then I think that they should try to do that. But other than that, this roster is, as I mentioned, young players entering the primes of their career, really signed up for a long time in Raymond. Larkin also signed up for a long time. Obviously, Mo Seider as well. I don't think DeBrincat, with 2 years on his deal after this, you would want to move. I think you'd want him to be part of the solution eventually going forward. I don't think you bring in Todd McClellan if you don't want to keep your veterans around. But this team has work to do, man. And they have improvements to make. I think they will make them minimally the rest of the way. Overall, inspiring change for you?
Not really. It's a necessary change, not all that inspiring. I will say, by the way, I think Marco Kasper has potential to be a guy down the line, not a guy right now. Very good young player at 20 years old.
So. Okay, so 4.5 men and counting. That's yes. The rundown on the Detroit Red Wings. Talk to you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.